Let's investigate more closely the relationship between motion relative to two frames of reference, S and S prime. So S in this case is represented by the XYZ axis and S prime by X prime, Y prime, and Z prime. S prime is moving relative to S. The position at any time of S prime relative to S is given by this purple vector, R S prime S. Any point in space can be given a position relative to S or relative to S prime. Relative to S, it's going to be this vector here, RPS. Relative to S prime, it's going to be this vector here. Now, the relationship between these vectors, if you examine them carefully, it is a graphical vector addition relationship. We have purple vector. At the tip of the purple vector, we have RPS prime. And then we join the tail of the purple vector to the tip of RPS prime. So that tells us RPS is equal to RS prime S plus RPS prime. Now, if I would like to find RPS prime relative to RPS, then I just rearrange that. So RPS prime is going to be RPS minus RS prime S. Minus RS prime S, that's the negative of this purple vector. That will be the same vector, but in the opposite direction. That would be the position of S relative to S prime. So the equation can be written as RPS plus RSS prime. Now, to find the velocities, we just take the derivative of the whole equation. Derivative of RPS prime should be VPS prime. Derivative of RPS should be RPS, and derivative of RSS prime should be VSS prime. And to get the acceleration, we take the derivative of this. So we have APS prime is equal to APS plus ASS prime. So basically these equations are giving us the relationship of the position of this point here relative to both S and S prime, the velocity of this point here relative to both S and S prime, the relationship between them, and the relationship of the acceleration of this point relative to S and S prime, the relationship between them. Now, note something in the notation here. We have subscripts written here for each of the quantities. The subscripts are referring to whatever we are dealing with, whether a point or a frame of reference. So now here, note also that the subscript is made up of two parts. The object whose motion you are concerned about, and then the second part would be the reference. This is the velocity of P relative to S prime. This is the velocity of P relative to S. This is the velocity of S relative to S prime. Object, the frame of reference relative to which you are getting that velocity. Now, moreover, notice the relationship here in the sum. I have P and S prime here. Only P and S prime. So when we introduced S here, we introduced it as a frame of reference and as an object. We introduced it as the second index and as the first index. in the subscripts. We still have P as the first index in here, and only once, and S prime, second index here and second index here.